Hello, everybody. Today is June 9th. Hopefully, by the time you're watching this, nothing else has happened that's too terrible, though I don't really count on that. Today, we're doing government and social media.
Seems unlikely.
Kurzgesagt did the solar flare 2020. It's like explaining like a coronal mass event, like the one in the 1800s that set the telegraphs on fire, something like that. That would be a great way to cap off 2020.
You said
Think
coronal
about that all the time.
record demonetization. Although, you know what? It doesn't matter anymore, right? That's been canceled. Somehow, all these rules we've been living under, just don't worry about them anymore.
It seems that way when going out in public, which is very terrifying.
Don't worry about those anymore.
You know, our numbers are creeping up kind of a lot. I feel bad for the old folks and anybody that is going to be predisposed to be more vulnerable to this thing.
It's been 2 weeks since Memorial Day here in the States, right?
Dates, Krista. Come on. It's 2020.
I don't know. I think it's been 2 weeks, so that would make sense that there would be a sudden jump up because that's when people started being like, but I want to go outside.
What month is it again? September?
It's June. It's June.
Juggist.
Juggist.
Well, we're doing government and social media today, and oddly enough, it seems like all of the lawmakers in the U.S. are preoccupied. So it's mostly international news, but we got a little bit of U.S. news for you, and of course, the one thing that never takes a time out is the assault on the big tech corporations. It's too important that they get that money, that sweet, sweet money. Although this time, they're threatening something a little more than a fine.
There it goes. States are leaning toward a push to break up Google's ad tech business. So, breaking up Google? What? Like the AT&T style breakup? Yeah, the article goes into that, but it says that it's likely that by the time this thing ends, it's going to be more like the Microsoft antitrust trial, which didn't really result in a breakup, but just more regulatory hoops that Microsoft has to jump through.
And obviously, it's the ad business that's the problem, because good Lord, does Google have a death grip on the ad business. But the question is, if you were to yank out advertising from Google, what does that look like? Because it's everything that they do.
The metagame here is also, I'm surprised that the lawmakers, wanted to control Google. My first thought of like, okay, what do they want to control? It's not really so much the ad technology, but just the ridiculous profile that they have on you. Like, they want to know, what color your poop is in the morning and everything in between. And this doesn't really talk about that. This really is just talking about we need control of the ads, and it's unfair practice because Google can price their ads differently than competitors. But the real threat, I think, from Google is the erosion of privacy. And that's just not even on the radar here for the legislators.
You think the government has any other kind of plan? They're just mad because Google is better.
I mean, it's like we can build this, completely unconstitutional database on all of our citizens if we have private business do it, I guess.
Well, they have that, but Google has proven to not be friendly to them. So it probably won't be great for the consumer, no matter what happens.
Do you think that's what this is really about, leverage? To be like, you have to give us all of the data on all of the people or we're not going to let you continue with this?
Absolutely. Sure. Yeah.
So it's not really about the stranglehold on the advertising industry. It's about they need all the data.
Yeah, after watching everything that's happened this week, I would say you could probably hedge your bets on the worst possible thing every time you read one of these stories.
After what you've seen on TV all this week, the word compliance should be front and center in your mind. That's what they want. That's what they demand.
And not the good sort of compliance in Flight of the Navigator, the bad sort of compliance.
Excellent reference for all those young folks in the audience. I don't know if it's the same guy, but it may be more than one, but there's some guy who's like, I'm 69 and I'm tired of you beating up on old people. And he writes these big, long comments. And we don't really have anything against old people. I realize that there are old people out there who are not subject to the average, I guess, of being technophobic and, fumbling with their microwave. But just using my parents as, a litmus test, I think it's pretty common.
Yeah.
I hope that I'm able to break that mold. I'm wondering what technology will just confound me in my 70s if I make it there, right?
VR. It'll be VR.
No, I think I got a handle on VR.
I'm looking forward to the food replicators because of the global food shortages and civil unrest and things like that. It's basically going to take ground up cockroaches and then shape it into things that I'm familiar with, like steaks and hamburgers.
But what if
you're giving spoilers for the August event?
What if the food replicator, like, you really do, the mind degrades, and you're watching your personal communicator, and you see all these people doing these amazing things. It's like, I added 3 508ths of this and got this amazing cranberry flavor, and then you're like, oh my god, but all you can do is like the Marie Callender pot pie because you just can't figure it out, so you're just eating those constantly, watching the rest of the world. That's what I feel like it'll be.
I think we've just written an episode of The Twilight Zone for the modern age.
And then you finally unlock you figure it out, and you break through, and it gives you food poisoning.
Yeah.
So, I was going to say there was a software update, and then all of a sudden that flavored profile doesn't work anymore.
Oh, that might be better.
Yeah.
Nutrient paste number 47 has expired. Please insert a new. It's like, but it wasn't expired 10 minutes ago.
They say that about cats. Like, cats can get addicted to a flavor if you only feed them the same thing over and over. And when you take it away from them, they're just like, I'm not eating. I won't have this. Which is weird because humans have the opposite.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's a headline that should surprise no one, but can we trust it? The fatigue is setting in with this. I'm so tired of these headlines.
Google says Iranian and Chinese hackers have targeted the Trump and Biden campaigns. It goes on to describe the hacking groups by name and say that these hacking groups specifically have targeted these campaigns. But, running some web servers on the internet, I've gotten a lot of attacks from Iran, China, Russia, residential US IP addresses, Greenland, France, wannado.fr. Oh, it's a dumpster fire of insanity. So there's not really a lot of technical details here. And until like a security researcher or somebody like, Troy Hunt or one of those is like, hey, look at this thing that's going on, I'm sort of skeptical of this because that's just the background noise of the internet to a point.
Yeah, it's kind of the horoscope of the security headline. It can be interpreted to the truth no matter what your situation is.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything necessarily. They did point out that it was China targeting Biden and Iran targeting Trump.
I'd love some details like, was it an infected Excel spreadsheet? A document titled like, oh, you wouldn't believe this dirt that we have. Check out these financials from, something holding corporation. It's details.
I bet they're re-imaging Trump's machine every night because, it's just memes with him in them. He's like, I got to see this. They're like, no, Trump, stop. Stop clicking on those. We've told you a million times. And he just fires that.
It's malicious tweets, probably.
Now, this one is... I thought about leading with this one because this is the most important story.
Yes.
Of the government section.
Out of the UK.
This is terrifying. And considering the names that are involved here, you got to think like, oh, wow, they're in bed with all the... Well, these are the people who are making ours. So you got to expect the worst in our case, right?
Under pressure, the UK government has released NHS data about the thing where they have deals with big tech companies for tracking. Now, up until now, the UK government said that we were going to use this for contact tracing. But these contracts, which I encourage you to read the PDF copies of, are much deeper than that. The headline company here that's going to help out the UK with this is Palantir, but it's also got Google, Microsoft, and Amazon and other big companies for building this huge piece of technology out. And this is, for contact tracing, but rest assured that technology is going to be used against the citizenry whenever they're even a little bit out of line, where out of line is defined as out of line according to whatever the worst political person in power is.
Going to a protest. That's it.
No, Chris, the people at the protest are immune to the virus, so they don't need a contact tracing app. Yeah, that's
nice.
So there's a shield of sanctimony that protects you when you're marching. So don't worry about it. Don't take it from it.
It's +2 to your immune system.
Oh, it's like +20. It has to get a critical infection to get through that shield. And then you get a 1d4 saving roll. So it's almost impossible. Now, the crazy thing about this is this was supposed to be open. Like, there's, the tracing app, we're going to give you all the information. No, they had to be sued to get this. The day
what does that tell you?
The day before the lawsuit went through, they were like, all right, here, you can look at it. And the people who got the information noted that the contracts changed that day. So it was supposed to be that they were going to delete the data. Well, that wasn't in the original contract. It was supposed to be that things like Palantir and faculty were not able to use this to train their AI. That was changed that day. Yeah. So really the worst possible scenario. The thing that all of the conspiracy theorists feared, like the whole pandemic thing, basically laid out in text here. It's like, what do we think after this? What are we supposed to think after we read these documents?
I think it's time to get that cabin. It's time to just isolate. Just go away.
Have you talked to a realtor yet, Krista?
No.
Too
Still
busy,
looking.
huh? Too busy?
Working on my garden.
Imagine what you could do with 57 acres, because you could have such a garden.
Could have a really good garden.
Now, Google has done a few things. All the big tech companies have done some things lately that seems like there might be some influence from China. And an app recently just rocketed to the number one. It was number one in India. Was it number one worldwide?
No, it was just India.
Number one app in India.
It was top 10 elsewhere.
Everybody was loving it. Had a very specific purpose, but Google decided maybe we should take that down.
Yeah. Google has removed the viral Chinese app scanner from the Play Store. Now, you may be thinking, oh, there was something wrong with the app. No. Google took it down for a quote-unquote terms of service violation. This app would scan your phone for other apps, and it would say, hey, this app has stuff that communicates with China, or this app is from this company, which is owned by a Chinese company. Very popular thing in India right now is to say, hey, we don't necessarily, like, China scares us a little bit. We don't really want to support their technology or their companies. We want to be able to remove stuff. And so people were downloading this app and then removing a lot of other named applications. And Google says, technically that's against our terms of service.
Although technically, the terms of service is it has to remove another app.
And it doesn't do that.
This one doesn't. Yeah,
it just tells the people.
Just lists them.
Yeah.
So did they get a phone call? Now, they pointed out that there were some memes coming out of China, and this is actually pretty funny and very true. And the Chinese are saying, oh, hey, India, you don't like Chinese technology? Better throw those phones in the river.
That's where everything else goes.
Oh,
that's sad. And
made
speaking...
myself sad.
I'm sorry, Chris, I talked over you. People are angry about that.
No, it's fine. I was just making a joke. It's fine.
Well, make it again.
I just said it made me sad. I've made myself sad.
Krista, we could probably do the news with you in your office and then just stream in here for lower latency.
Oh yeah, or I
latency.
could just start coming in.
Oh.
Because you know what? Who cares anymore, right? Like, might as well just.
Well, yeah, that's right. I mean, you don't have to worry about it. Chris, here's what you do, right? You do a little bit of protesting on Saturday. Get that protester immunity, and then you just pop in here on Sunday. You got no risk.
Most of the protesters I saw, at least around here, they all had masks on.
That was not the case on the one day.
Also, the cops in our town, anyway, they were just riding around on bicycles. Like, they weren't doing anything to the protesters. They were just like, yeah, whatever. Like,
well, what can you do? I mean, it's all going to go bad the first time, anything you try.
It's just such a contrast compared to larger cities where, the things are happening.
I don't think we have very many left-wing terrorists in this town.
I hope not.
And speaking of China, this is a story out of Canada, actually, but it's about Huawei, and Huawei is right there in the trade war between the U.S. and China, and poor Canada has been dragged into the fight, and they are drawing the ire of China when they seem like they're just trying to do it by the letter of the law.
Yeah. Exclusive. This is from Reuters. Huawei hid business operations in Iran after Reuters reported links to the CFO. This article actually has a lot of concrete material, which is really good. They really should have made more of this public because I was kind of skeptical when she was arrested in Canada. But the documents they released here, they're really, really damning. It's again that sort of weird Chinese transparency where they're like, well, the law says this, so we're going to have to do this other thing. But there's a paper trail that explains how they're going to circumvent the law on a technicality. But the law doesn't really work on technicalities. So it's like Skycom or something. Yeah, Skycom Tech. Skycom Tech was set up one way in the beginning, and then they said, oh, because of these sanctions, we're going to have to do this, this, and this to make it a slightly more distanced situation. But we need to do this, this, and this to ensure that we still have control of that corporation. And because there exist documents that say that, oh, we still are going to control it even though the ownership structure is going to be different, that sort of negates any sort of technicality or loophole that they might have been able to exploit.
They point out that in the internal communications, they keep referring to A2 representative and A2 problems, and A2 is how they referred to the sanctions for Iran.
It doesn't really strike me as a lot different than what we did with, what was it, Chiquita in Brazil? But that was a long time ago.
All right.
Yeah, we're definitely not still doing that. We would never still do that.
If another country put sanctions against us, we would break them as fast as Trump could get to a keyboard. There's no reason to pretend otherwise. This is not the moral high ground. This is the military high ground.
Iran has oil. You want to, it's like that's currency. We could just, you want to, just leave money on the table? That's crazy.
Now, how old a woman is she? Do you know?
No idea.
She has that look where it's like, what is that subreddit, 14 or 40? Like she has flawless skin and she looks like she's, like a perfect physical condition, but she's just ageless.
Somebody that I knew in college, I ran into them the other day, and he's like, he's got a lot of miles on him, but he married somebody from Thailand, and she looks exactly the same, like exactly, like it's like, that is impressive.
If they ever do a Wheel of Time movie, the Aes Sedai, the ageless magic women, she should be one of them. Krista was one of my favorite things, let me say, about the protests and this all this information we got coming in, all this reality that we're being force fed, is Krista sort of shedding her innocence in terms of authoritarianism. And she's like, "Can you believe this?" And it's like, "Well, yeah, I can, because I've thought this for a while." But I'm glad you're getting on board. Krista, it does seem like your bubble has been burst here.
A little bit. So, I've never had any bad, I guess, relations with the police before. But after seeing video after video after video after video of the things that I've seen this week, it's just completely, it has burst that bubble.
Yeah, and there are a lot of headlines where if you are paying the least bit of attention, you should be terrified for the same reasons.
You want to read the next headline?
Sure. The DEA has been given permission to investigate people protesting George Floyd's death.
The DEA, what do they have to do with that? Nothing, except they have this amazing technology that was never supposed to be used on U.S. citizens.
I'm sure they have extensive training in crowd control, right?
Yeah, just like the cops.
All those drug-frenzied mobs that we have running around in the streets.
This is the thing that we're always warning you guys about in the audience, is mission creep and scope creep. It's like, if you build the technology, it will be used for some other purpose other than which it was intended. There it is. That right there. That is not okay.
Now, a lot of people will defend it, I guess, saying because they really are just bringing in every kind of manpower that they can. But this is not control that these people are doing. This is surveillance and investigation. So you have to assume that this is for pressing charges after the fact, right?
It would have to be.
What other reason would there be?
Yeah.
And they have all these nice, beautiful gadgets and all this great stuff for doing that kind of surveillance and training to do that kind of thing, which is now being presumably unleashed on the mobs that are walking down the streets. Alarming. Now, if you look at the UK story about the tracing app and just the betrayal, I guess is a good word for it, right? The epic betrayal.
It is an amazing betrayal. I hope that you guys in the UK are like, wait, what? And you go look into it, because that's a big deal.
You know what? Get your flattened butter knife and take to the streets. Don't do that.
You'll probably get arrested. Definitely don't take your potato peeler.
But
is it London that they don't allow you to have knives? Is it just London, or is it the whole country now?
Where a knife also includes a potato peeler.
I don't know if is it just the city, or I think it's the whole country. Right?
I want to say it was just London.
They have pretty rural places. That would be kind of crazy in more rural places.
Yeah.
Anyway, here in the States, I guess some of our lawmakers, some who may still be not completely over to the dark side saw that.
Some of which were arrested in the protests.
Pepper sprayed, yeah.
There are a lot of situations where people get arrested, and it's like, oh, that's somebody's son or daughter. I think Cuomo's daughter got arrested.
Yeah.
And one guy was like, I think he was some kind of lawmaker, and he was like, oh, yeah, I was protesting. But maybe because they're good, maybe because they're just trying to get in front of it because they know what is on our end. But for whatever reason, they are taking steps.
Senators proposed COVID-19 contact tracing privacy bill.
Well, you're just throwing it out the window.
Oh!
Did you protest?
No.
Then you don't have the immunity.
I don't.
You can't say it.
YouTube probably doesn't care at this point. It'll probably just flag us for saying protesters.
That's true.
That's where we are now. So
you need to talk about, Barbie Dreamhouse. Barbie Dreamhouse is what this episode is about. And those keywords, those ad dollars are going to overshadow literally everything else.
Protest Barbie. Did they not have that yet? That's coming. They should have that. Barbie Lives Matter. That'll be the lineup. So, they're just basically saying that basically trying to lay out rules that prevent what's happening in the UK. You have to delete the data. You can't use it for your ad profiles and stuff like that. You have to be anonymous, blah, 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 that kind of thing.
This probably won't have any teeth by the time it gets passed. What, Krista?
They'll totally listen. They'll definitely not keep all that and use it for whatever purpose they want.
But Google was one of the companies in the UK. So Google already runs it here. What hope do we have? Now, in the last couple of newses, especially last week, we got a lot of comments.
Sorry about the apple.
Oh, yeah. I have an apple downstairs, and I was going to start this episode by eating it. Oh, dang it. Forgot.
A lot of complaints about that. Now, those complaints are merited. Okay. Yeah. Nobody likes the food and microphone mixture. But there are also a lot of people, and this is one of my, it drives me crazy, but I also kind of like it. It's that kind of thing where it's like, you don't understand anything about politics, stick to technology. Politics is opinion. By nature. What you meant to say is, I disagree with your politics, which makes sense, and I'm leaving. And so those people said, listen, if you don't cut it out, we're unsubscribing, we're gone, I've had enough of this. So this week, when I saw stories that were just purely political and had nothing to do with technology, popped them right in.
UK willing to admit nearly 3 million from Hong Kong if China adopts security law. Now, Hong Kong has a lot to do with technology. They do a lot of really amazing technological stuff.
There's a tenuous connection, but I didn't want to tell them that. Hopefully they've already gone before you know that. So.
Also, things like the DEA story where it's like, but they're using
surveillance.
The technology. Yeah. I mean, it's literally all connected.
What isn't connected to technology having to do with all this stuff? That's the thing. People are just, that's why we want them to go.
Politicians with this kind of technology is like chimp with machine guns.
So, if you don't know, and I guess you could be forgiven in the last 2 weeks. Has it been 2 weeks? Been like 12 days?
I don't know.
It was
9 days.
Friday?
10 days.
Was Friday when he was killed?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It was May 25th, I think.
Well, this had been boiling for a while. The Louisville thing happened before that even.
That was in April, I think.
Yeah.
Also, it was... Yeah. Just whatever. You guys know. But during that time, you'd be forgiven for not picking up a lot of Chinese news or European news, if you're in the U.S., of course. But on the eve of the Tiananmen Square anniversary, China has pushed through this new law.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's basically stripping away all of Hong Kong's autonomy. It's like, no, you're part of China now, and we're going to put a stop to this nonsense. And because of the history of Hong Kong, where,
British rule.
British kind of owned it for a long time, maybe not the most pleasant part of history, but they say, hey, listen, we still got a dog in this fight, and these are our people, essentially, so bring them on. We'll take them in.
Yeah. It's 500,000 passport holders and 2.5 million people that would be eligible to apply for a more permanent visa, and there will be some path to citizenship, but they haven't worked out the details. This is a good move. I'm honestly surprised that the UK would do this. 3 million is probably not enough, but it's only been since 1997 that, British, I guess, ceded control of the area, or ceded more control.
It's probably a good move for human rights. It's a bad move for diplomacy with China.
Yeah.
China are very unhappy about this.
So, well, I mean, it seems like China is just trying to quell the unrest with just more and more escalations instead of trying to diffuse the situation.
And
this is the best crossover episode, though. Watching our protesters start to take the tactics of the Hong Kong protesters, where like they're all carrying umbrellas and shields and stuff.
Yeah,
that's
what a great crossover.
Like the mystery bricks. It's like, the mystery bricks. What's going on? People, they're like pallets and buckets of bricks showing up everywhere. Somebody was like, "Well, just do what the people in Hong Kong did. Just glue them to the road."
Effective.
Yeah. Now, should I say this? I'm going to say it because I don't believe in censorship, but recognizing that this could be just a little bit racially insensitive. In general, it does seem like, in terms of like tax base and community enrichment and stuff, Chinese immigrants are fantastic. So I don't think there's a risk here of pissing the people off by inviting the people of Hong Kong. I think the people of Hong Kong, great addition.
Yeah.
Wherever you're going to put them. We should get some.
I don't think that our politicians will do that, but I would be open to that in other circumstances, even from other countries.
Our politicians have their hands full right now.
Yeah, they're really busy. Well, also, over across the pond, the EU is, we talk a lot about them attacking the big tech companies, and one big point of contention is cloud data. Social media, stuff like that. Where is it stored? Who has access to it? Who can steal it and spy on it? Stuff like that. And there's really no good solution because cloud computing is somebody else's computer and there's nothing you can do about it. Do you need to bleed into an advertisement this week?
Oh yeah, Linode. I mean, we could plug Linode.
Well, there's something you can do about it.
You could get your own hosting with Linode. Look at that. There's a Linode link at the bottom.
Which was missing on Friday.
Linode. I think we got that corrected.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It was linode.com/level1 text. There's a link below. It's a $20 coupon. Linode is somebody that we've been using for hosting since like forever. Believe it or not, a lot of the traffic to our YouTube channel, because the notifications and stuff are just broken and garbage, is driven from the website and from the Level 1 forum, and all of that's hosted on Linode. So good job, Linode. We're glad to have you. And maybe soon, if we launch the new Level 1 website, it's going to be on a Kubernetes cluster, because they've got a Kubernetes setup. Linode has a Kubernetes setup that rivals the Google Compute Cloud and costs 50% to 60% less on the handful of projects that I've deployed on it, so be sure to check that out.
Such a smooth transition to the ad every week.
Now, in the EU, they might not be using Linode, but they are looking for not necessarily an alternative, but a set of rules that they can impose on these big cloud companies to try and rein them in.
France, Germany, and others are backing the European cloud computing moonshot. This is another Reuters article. What this is talking about is saying that things like Google's cloud compute engine and Amazon AWS are sort of taking over the universe, and they have a problem with that. And they would really like to see not just the data hosted in the European Union, but the technology that does that to not be locked up with Amazon. A lot of the magic of Amazon AWS is that you can automate it. You can write a little blog, and if your blog gets 1 million hits, the monitoring and control scripts at Amazon can deploy increases to your hosting to handle whatever traffic load that you might have. It'll provision new virtual machines, so the load will be spread out however you prescribe in your setup. The European Union countries are rightly recognizing, hey, that's just a software thing. Like, this is actually kind of expensive. Maybe we could do the software, and then that would better enable European companies to provide similar services that aren't locked up behind US companies. And I think they're probably right, but it's probably going to take about 5 years for that to come to fruition. And I would love to see this as open source. Like, if they adopt an open source thing for this, that'd be great.
If they don't do that, their version in 5 years when it's done is going to be so far behind Google.
Yeah.
It's not going to matter.
Yeah.
But one thing that they want to do is they want to use legislation to make it a requirement that whatever your cloud hosting is, that it's in some kind of standard, so that if you decide to move to somebody else's cloud hosting, it's just, you just simply switch it over because it's the same format.
that would work with Kubernetes and Docker and those kind of things. But we'll see if the legislators end up mandating like new technologies for intercompatibility things, because that would just be silly otherwise.
They would never do anything silly. They're the government. Germany is, especially more so in the EU, but all over the world, this push for green energy. And people still believe that electric cars are better than gasoline engine cars for the environment. Probably true. Maybe not as true as a lot of people would have you believe, but probably true that a world just running purely on electric would be good, especially with renewable energy. The problem is, especially around here, like the nearest charger is 35 minutes away from us?
At least.
Yeah.
There's 2 downtown now.
Oh, really?
Yes, over by like the courthouse and stuff.
Huh.
I have seen them.
That was tough on some people yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But anyway, still not super convenient. There's 2 in town versus how many gas pumps?
At least 100.
Yeah.
Way more than 100. So in Germany, they want to defeat that with, again, legislation.
Germany will require all petrol stations to provide electric car charging. You can tell the author of this was European because they refer to it as petrol.
I've never actually heard an American say petrol. Yeah. I always hear that as like a British accent when I read it in my head.
I saw some headlines about the protest that reference petrol bombs. It's like, bro, those are Molotovs. This is America.
My favorite thing, this wasn't even in the U.S., it was like Greeks, and they just ran up to the American embassies with mollies and just threw them at the embassy.
the Greek people
were just cheering along, and the cops were like, well.
The Greek people have been protesting for a while. They had that austerity thing. Yeah.
I was sad to learn there was a clip that I saw of it looked like somebody was using a bottle of vodka as a Molotov, but it was actually a staged comedy skit where somebody grabbed it, it was on fire, and somebody grabbed it out of somebody's hands and pulled the flaming thing out and just started drinking it. It was funny.
Mood.
I'm trying to. Did they mention how much one of these costs to install?
With a gas station, you're in and out in 5 minutes. The charging station requires some different logistics. It's not like
only one is required.
Yeah, so it seems weird.
Yeah, if there's going to be a tipping point of electric cars where that would be a nightmare.
Yeah,
but I guess it's better than nothing. And in a lot of cases, doesn't Tesla, like, if you're willing to host it, they'll just come out and install it for you
at your house?
No, at the like a public spot.
Yeah. They used to do that. I don't know if they still do.
I mean, that's great advertising, right?
Yeah.
So why not? And I'm sure other companies, if you're going to sell the cars, you need this kind of thing. Probably a way to offset this cost.
There was a couple businesses in California that, like, in their parking lot, there's just an entire row that the employees can just park their car there and it'll charge. And then their car will text them when it's done charging so they can move.
Chris, what time you get to bed last night?
Like 3. I'm trying not to yawn, but it's a struggle.
Also in Germany, one of the issues with AI that we've talked about a lot is there are ways to trick AI with those adversarial images that the human eye really can't pick up on. And when we talked about that back in the day, probably like a year or 2 years ago, we're like, there's going to be weird situations where, the world's going to look the same, but crazy things would be happening with AI because people are going to figure it out. Well, they figured it out.
Germany bans digital doppelganger passport photos because apparently this has become a problem. What you do is you take a picture of you and you take a picture of somebody else that you want to share your passport with, and you can use software to very subtly manipulate your picture. So to the naked eye, it looks like you, but to the computer, it would accept you or somebody else. There's an implicit thing here that's really scary, which is apparently they're using your tiny, poor quality passport photo as a piece of biometric information for your passport, which doesn't seem like that should be correct. It's supposed to just be like a rough indicator because...
and not only are they using it, they're only using it. Yeah. Because you're able to get through the system only using it.
That doesn't seem good.
So you're going to have to go in person to a passport office. I guess that's kind of like our post office, and get your picture taken there, and then they submit it for you. Or you go through their online portal to submit your picture, and I suppose they're going to put it through some kind of algorithm that checks for.
It mentioned that your photographer has to be on the list or whatever so that it's submitted securely. Like, you're not going to submit your photo anymore at all. It's got to be a photographer that's doing it. Or
what do you think it looks like to get on that list?
Amateur. It's like this photographer's not allowed to take his own pictures. But still, that's a neat piece of technology. I had no idea that was a thing. We should totally do that.
Now, here's a great dystopian novel/movie, right? It's in the dark future where everything is tracked by facial recognition, or these kinds of things, and you have to seek out your doppelganger of or either the opposite sex or whatever your sexuality is. You want to find it because they point out that you have to have a certain amount of sameness for this to work, like your eye spacing and stuff like that. So it doesn't work with just anybody. You have to find somebody who's compatible with you, and that's how you select your partner in the dark future, because that helps you. Like, if you get sick and you can't put in your mandatory hours at work, your doppelganger can double time for you and keep you from being mulched and used for fertilizer.
I thought you were going to go.
Kind of describing Gattaca.
Kristen, come on. Every time.
There's always a movie that's already done it.
I thought you were describing the one where the twins. It was two twins that are up on murder, and one of them gets off. Except you're not twins; they're just random people.
R. Kelly,
or a modern version of To Throw Mama from the Train.
Sure, whatever. I think my version's better.
Yeah.
Moving on to social media. Instagram. Now, we have all gone to the news. Listen, I read through these news stories, and sometimes there's those clickbait headlines over there, and it's like, oh, so-and-so in this scandalous bikini. Sometimes I click. Sometimes I do it. And it's always an Instagram embed. And you look at it, and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, there's this chick, and whatever. It turns out that when you do an Instagram embed, you think to yourself, oh, Instagram provides an API, so they're fine with me sharing their content, right? I mean, that's kind of what their whole business model is.
That's what social media is.
Wrong.
Instagram just threw users of its embedding API under the bus. People may need to get permission before embedding someone else's Instagram photo. Now, this is a really interesting story. It didn't seem like it was going to be at first blush, because you think about it and you think about the stories we've covered. There was that story where somebody had the copyright to their photo, and the news outfit asked to use it, and they said no, but they had posted it.
It was the state website.
Yeah,
tourism.
They had posted it to the social media website. No, it's not that one. The one I'm thinking of, it's a different one. But they posted, or they wanted to post it on their own website, and they said no. So instead, the news agency did an embed. And that went to court, and the photographer lost because the picture was posted to social media, and this, was embedded in the rules of that. But this goes on to talk a little bit more about how, like, the nuance of the law is such that maybe if the web server operator did something to cause another web server to embed the image, maybe that's not exactly the same. Like, maybe that speaks to intent of the web server operator and not the person that posted it to Instagram. So there may actually be legal issues there.
But there are also existing cases where they apply what they call the server test, which is to say, whose server did the image come from as it was rendered? And in the was there a beep?
Oh yeah, I was over there.
Oh. In this case, with an Instagram embed, it's coming from Instagram server. So who's to blame for the publishing of that image? And Instagram did create an API and granted you a key.
Do people have the right to say that this image is not embeddable?
Now, I thought that maybe they've changed it, but the Facebook terms of service basically said whatever you upload is ours.
Yeah, Instagram has that too.
See, I would think, like, you would want, if you were someone who was creating stuff and putting it on Instagram, you'd want to do the lesser of two evils, where it's like someone can embed, but then that way it has a link back to me.
Yeah, that was the whole point.
But Instagram, an embed would do that. If you clicked on it, they would go to your. Yeah. But I think this is more of a situation where, like, remember when Trump was campaigning, and he kept changing his song that he walked out to. And every time he did, the artist would step up and be like, stop doing it. I hate you.
Yeah.
So, like, what if, I run a Nazi website and I embed one of your Instagrams on it?
Yeah.
Are you helpless there? Or like you say, news organizations are making money off this.
Yeah.
And using it as their content because they're lazy. But if that's my cat picture. You're not allowed to do that.
That's my CNBC article these bozos on YouTube are reading about.
Yeah, I was about to say, I mean, that's kind of what's coming. But, okay, yeah, point taken.
And speaking of hating Trump, a lot of people do, and especially in the tech world these days. And I got to say, I'm definitely not an orange man bad guy, but boy, has he fumbled this one. You really can't defend his response to the current crisis.
You don't enjoy being dominated?
Yeah. When you're making funny rhymes about shooting people and you're the president, I got to question it. So the social media companies have all kinds of different approaches, and most of them have weighed in at this point, but one was still holding out, and now we know where they stand.
Snapchat is going to stop promoting Trump's content. The move brings Snapchat more in line with Twitter's approach to the president's rhetoric, while Facebook has maintained that it will not take action. So I guess the president's content was popular?
I can see that.
And then that was driving the algorithm, and so now they're modifying the algorithm to be like, no.
Now, they say Trump's content. Is that his account? Or is it anything about him?
His Snapchat things, I guess.
The things he posts.
Is he Snapchatting a lot, you think? That's actually pretty technologically hip for an old man.
Yeah. I thought it was just the Twitter.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's...
I didn't realize he had a Snapchat.
It's not him, it's his staff, but still.
Scary.
Now, this of course, is old news, but that's exactly a week old, actually, by the time you hear it. But hey, it happened, and we're going to talk about it. And that was the Blackout Tuesday. Now, people wanted to... they didn't really want to leave the house because, you know, that whole pandemic thing. But they wanted to show their support. And they came up with a plan, but a lot of people reacted poorly.
Instagram users flood the app with millions of Blackout Tuesday posts. It's literally just solid black pictures, which made it impossible to find anything that wasn't that, which was, you know, maybe this was a troll.
I think it was a troll because this was also the day that a lot of states had their primary voting.
Yeah, so apparently they were using the hashtag Black Lives Matter to kind of coordinate and, you know, keep the protesters updated, let everybody know what was happening. But when you searched for the hashtag Black Lives Matter on Tuesday, here's what you got.
Yeah, it's just nothing useful. That seems counterproductive by a lot.
But you got to let everybody know where you stand.
Yeah.
Unfortunate. A lot of other stuff happened on that day. We're going to cover that in the business section.
Yeah.
Tomorrow. We have seen several stories like this. What was the one that it was a cow? Remember that one?
Oh, yeah.
The cow was like going after the senator or something like that. He lost that case.
Yeah.
But, and this is in Ireland, so this is not U.S. case law, doesn't matter for it. In Ireland, it seems to be moving more toward the Orwellian company. It's getting the ruling here rather than the person.
Twitter ordered to disclose information over parody account. This was a shipping company. It was a shipping company. The Twitter account is making fun of the shipping company because it's like, we might deliver it whenever we feel like it, or your package is currently on fire. Fastway, I guess, was the company. He used the company's logo by the parody account, and that could be damaging, a judge has ruled. So they've ordered Twitter to hand over any information they have about who owns or controls the account.
They started out calling it Fastway with the Fastway logo. Then they kind of, I think, got some pushback, and they started changing a little bit. They ended up, shortly afterward, they settled on Fartway. And the parody account, they were saying it's like, oh, you know, hey, burned another shipment of packages today, because apparently they have a bad reputation. They're like the Amazon drivers. And so the judge said that any reasonable person reading this would understand that it's not real. It's not them actually doing it, and they wouldn't think that they're, you know, besmirching them in that manner. But they did use the official logo. So the case, I guess, can get to that point.
I don't know. I feel like anyone with half a brain cell would be able to tell if that was parody, but
how many, here's the question, Krista, how many Twitter users have half a brain cell?
apparently not enough.
Facebook are really catching a lot of oh no.
Oh no, you've got the Rona.
A lot of flack. I didn't protest. What was I thinking? They're really catching a lot of flack over the whole political ad thing, because he's sticking to his guns and he's saying, no, you do what you want. And everybody else is, moved to the other side. And I think maybe they're just trying to do everything they can to minimize the fallout from this and minimize the election drama without actually giving in.
Facebook to block ads from state-controlled media entities in the U.S. And I went on to read the article expecting some state-based media entities, like here in the U.S.,
like
to be
CNN?
listed. Yeah, and it was like, nope, we're talking about like China and stuff. They're just labeling it. So it's like, some of the Russian publications and some of the Chinese publications, they're going to be labeled as like, this may not be, whatever, which is probably going to lead to more political fallout.
Oh, here we go. Sputnik, People's Daily, Tasnim, and RT is definitely on that list. But it is news agencies which are well known to be owned or funded by a government agency.
Ugh.
So they're not blocking it. They're just saying, hey. Or wait, are they blocking it?
No, they're just...
Oh, no ads. You're not allowed to have... you're not allowed to buy ads. So your content is still there.
And it gets labeled.
So, I don't know if that's a terrible move or not. One thing that I've learned is if you want some decent reporting about the horrible stuff that Russia is doing, CNN is actually a pretty good resource. If you want to know some horrible things about what the U.S. government is doing, RT can be your friend. The opposite side of that, no use at all, either of them. But, you look to the enemy to give you the truth about your government. It seems to be a pretty good tactic. Another problem with the Facebook thing, not only are they allowing any kind of political ad, but they are not doing what Snapchat and Twitter and all these other companies are doing and sort of spanking Trump digitally when he says something that they consider to be terrible. And again, I have to say, he really fumbled this one. But does he deserve to be marked as like false information or inciting violence or whatever? Zuckerberg says no, and it's not a popular decision even within his own ranks.
Yeah. Bloomberg is reporting that Facebook worker unrest has risen to the level of a walkout and open criticism of its CEO. But Mark Zuckerberg keeps telling people, hey, we don't want to be the arbiter of truth. I think you mentioned last week that they moved the meeting up from like a Thursday to a Tuesday. Well, they had that meeting and it was just pure unadulterated chaos because the workers were like, hey, we should, we do this over here. Why don't we do this with the U.S. political thing? And Zuckerberg was just like, we can't step in this because then it's just, it's going to be a huge mess.
He's got a point.
Yeah.
As unpopular as it is. I mean, basically, I think what they want him to do is to take a side. And the tech companies are so left-wing, it's obvious where they want him to go.
Yeah.
I got to give him a little bit of credit that maybe it is just like that purely logical robot mind is able to cut through the noise and make that decision. He's like, listen, we're not in the business of taking political stances. We're in the business of building advertising profiles. All right, let's get back to that's our bread and butter here, folks.
We need to know everybody's deepest, darkest secrets, and we're going to put it in our database. That's what we're going to do. I got to agree with that. I think that you got to be careful with this kind of thing because maybe it's always been this bad, but maybe because literally everything is digital, you're able to sort of deal with the gaslighting from politicians a little bit better because you can go back and you can rewatch something and you can see it's like, well, that's not the context of what that person was saying here. Or it's like, here's a video of what happened and it's the whole thing. I watched 10 minutes when it was super boring before the thing and 10 minutes after the thing when it was super boring again. And, I can see that both sides are putting some spin on this. We never had that before as a society. So, what is the truth of the situation? I think only historians are qualified to write that, and even that is written with a biased lens.
So the walkout wasn't really a walkout because, of course, nobody's at the Facebook office. So you just didn't log into work for a day.
That's something.
Yeah. I don't know if it'll be effective. And our final story, and you might be thinking, hey, well, this already happened. But no, it was clinging to life, trying to drag itself out of the grave, doing everything it could when it should never have existed in the first place. But now, finally, it's dead.
And that's really it for Google Plus. Google has finally expunged that. Remember Google Plus?
Let it die.
They had that really amazing policy where it's like, no, you can only use your real name. We need to upload, your photo ID if we don't believe that you're really,
Yeah, they tried to make YouTube comments go through it too, and everyone threw a fit.
Yeah. It's amazing. There's how many technologies has Google? Google is in a position to give us technology that is beyond the wildest dreams of Arthur C. Clarke in terms of communication and making the human connection and a social network and crap like this, and they lack the vision. Google, it's just everything is a dumpster fire.
Well,
you say that, but they also gave us Google Analytics, so
yeah,
also a dumpster fire.
I think they lose a lot, but when they win, it's huge. And the big wins are a product of the many small losses.
Well, they don't fail very fast, though. I mean, look at Google Plus. Everybody knew Google Plus was going to be a failure 6 months after it launched. But look at the Google Team product. It was Duo, and then before Duo it was Chat, and then now it's Meetings or something. There's all this just Waze. There's just all this.
They rolled Waze into Maps.
Well, I mean, but it's not. Again, the usability. It's Waze was amazing and usable, and Waze and Google Maps is kind of a dumpster fire.
Well, let's not going to afford it. Also, Currents is the new thing. It's going to be. It's not the same as Google Plus at all, but it's their answer to the Teams Slack company internal communication thing.
There's no vision.
They can afford it. That's it for us this week, and tomorrow's going to be business, and maybe you want to do robots or security with business.
Probably
do
security.
robots with it.
Really? Robots?
Oh.
Okay.
So you space out the fun content.
There wasn't a lot of fun robots this week, but it's more fun than security.
Wow.
All right, Krista, take us out.
All right.